at half the amount of time. They're good. There's nothing wrong if you use them. I'm not attacking them. I'm just saying I think they teach them bad habits. And I just want to have a quick little video of why I believe they're bad habits. So, hey guys, Shane Savage from Savage Custom Knives, and let's have a quick talk about bevel jigs. I don't know if not a lot of knife makers actually know what one of these are, but basically it is a guide on an L frame where it allows you to change this little wheel here to change the angle of the knife bevel. So we sort of professionally teach knife making to a lot of beginners, and the way I explain this to everybody, there's nothing wrong with using a bevel jig, okay? But there's a couple things we've got to think about when we think bevel jig. What is it used for? How do we use it? And why do we use it? So there's generally 4 major things I don't like personally about a knife jig, but I always preface this by saying to you guys is there's nothing wrong at all with using a knife jig if you're getting into knife making. But personally, I believe a lot of beginner makers get them and they get some bad habits. And the way I explain that is a bevel jig guide, it will get you good grinding quicker than freehand grinding. Now, freehand grinding is extremely difficult. Like, I'll talk way more difficult than a guide. Like, if you learn knife grinding with the bevel jig guide, there's nothing wrong with that. You'll learn in about half the amount of time. They're good. There's nothing wrong if you use them. I'm not attacking them. I'm just saying I think they teach them bad habits. And I just want to have a quick little video of why I believe they're bad habits. So, 4 reasons. And there's some workarounds here, guys. So, generally, this comes down to if you grind before heat treat or if you grind after heat treat. Either. It's no difference. It just depends on your process. So, one thing I don't like is we can't see the bevel, which is fine. We can pick the whole thing up and look at it. No problem. There's a workaround, yeah? So no stress. 2, which is the biggest thing, well, not the biggest thing, that's 3. So 2 is basically you can't feel the heat of the blade, because I tend to grind after heat treat, which is my preferred method, so which is fine. I can touch it more regularly, or I can pick the whole thing up and put it in the water, which is a perfect workaround, guys. So again, nothing wrong with it, no big deal, you just got to be aware of those issues. 3 is the biggest thing I don't like, and I've already this in here, but with a bevel jig guide, you're actually quite limited on knife design due to the angles the blades sit. And that's the main reason I don't like to teach people bevel grinding. I much prefer to teach people freehand grinding, which I refer to as foundational grinding. And the reason I call it foundational is if you spend the time to learn freehand grinding, you're going to be far better off in the long run. You can do much more complex blades, you'll have much more freedom, and you can generally apply a lot more pressure if you're used to it, well, with the way I teach anyway. And 3, let's have little arms here. So these are handy, and we have a little table on the grinder. So if we look, and let's just say, for example, I have an 8-inch chef knife, and I'm going to apply pressure here. Don't have both my hands free, but when I start grinding, because I'm not on rails, it's quite difficult to keep it straight without a lot of practice. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. So the way I explain that is freehand grinding is freehand assisted grinding, which is definitely going to give you better grinding than freehand straight away. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So jigs, I don't like them. I find them really restrictive. I like to teach people not to use them, but I always say there's absolutely nothing wrong with using jigs, guys, if you get them. Generally, most people are better off hybridizing it, and what I mean by that is basically you use a jig for stuff you can't do, and you do everything else you can freehand. And I want you guys to remember, especially you beginners, is perfection will come with practice. Don't get into it thinking you need to rely on everything and you have to do everything perfectly when you're learning, because it doesn't work out, guys. You need to make a few mistakes early to improve on, and that's really the biggest thing that comes down to freehand grinding is perfection comes with practice. Practice makes perfect, and as simple as that. As long as each thing you make is a slightly bit better than whatever you make last time, you're on the right track. You'll have much more fun, you're more likely to stick with the hobby, you'll be much more successful. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with these, guys. They are a tool and you can use them at your own discretion, but that's my personal opinion on them. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you use jigs, not use jigs? What do you use jigs for? Do you recommend freehand grinding? Do you actually freehand grind? I know a few makers who predominantly freehand grind. But yeah, let me know what you think, guys.